wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Plus, Jujutsu Kaisen crossover. The Curse Within the Depths. /n. Sorry for the late upload of this chapter. I have no excuse for it. On the other hand, though, the next chapter for my other series will drop soon, so stay tuned for that. Disclaimer: Damachi or Jujutsu Kaisen don't belong to me. All credit goes to their respective authors. But this story belongs to me and any character/monster I make or add to this story. Chapter 1. The Curse Remerges. -7-year time skip. It had been many years since Sukuna, the king of curses, was vanquished and some semblance of peace had returned to Oreo after so many dreadful years under fear and torment. During this time of peace in Oreo, the Loki and Freya families have grown stronger since the incident 7 years ago. Loki now has a level 7 in her ranks and is the captain, Dame. On the other hand, Freya now has a level 8 in her family, the King Otter. While on the surface it seems all well and good, beneath all that peace and tranquility a curse is looking to remerge and spread once more. After Sukuna's demise against the allied forces of Loki, Freya, and the Baldur Familia's Leon, the remaining followers went into hiding for many years, and during that time, they took Sukuna's corpse and dismembered it, leaving only the fingers behind. The fingers seemed to radiate a faint power, and the followers believed if they could reignite this power and find a worthy host, then the cursed king would return. After many long years of research and vigorous study, they had finally done it. The cultist had finally reignited the malevolent power from the finger using dark arts and forbidden magic. In doing so, they drained their life force, in turn, killing themselves. But before they all died, a few decided to spread out the fingers in the dungeon, specifically some undiscovered areas by the guild, so not just anyone could walk up and take the cursed finger. Unfortunately, some monsters have gotten a hold of the cursed fingers and have amplified their power tenfold, and this unforeseen circumstance caused the Loki and Freya Familia to stagnate in the dungeon, only being able to reach the 58th floor respectively. The guild had started noticing the change when adventurers from the 18th floor and up started disappearing or returning crippled. Uranus, the founding father of Oreo, had felt the shift in the dungeon and asked for an immediate investigation by the top familias, that being Loki and Freya. Though they had their differences, both goddesses noticed along with their children that something was off, and it needed their immediate attention. Loki Familia Assembly Hall. All right, everyone quiet down. Finn called out to everyone gathered. As you know, the guild and Lord Uranus have requested us to investigate and traverse the dungeon and find out the cause of the super-enhanced species. He announced. Loki would chime in, super-enhanced? Is that why we can't get past the 58th floor? Unfortunately, yes. That would be the case. Finn would reply with a stoic expression on his face. That seems to be the case for my familia also. Freya would add on. Oh, so your children are struggling too, Fry? Loki would ask a little shocked. Yes. The rise in strength in the deep floor monsters counters the strength my familia has gained. Freya would state. Well, this seems to be an issue that both of our familias have in common. So, I propose that we work together once more. Finn interjected. Both Loki and Freya looked at Finn along with their members, shocked at this proposition. What? Then we only promised to work with them once, and that was for a special circumstance. Loki would voice out her opinion. Yeah, I agree with Loki. I ain't working with that mangy cat. Bet would say, spite filling his words. Huh, what was that, you stupid mutt? Alan would fire back, annoyed with the comment. Oh, you want to go? Let's settle this right now. Bet shot back. But before the two could continue their little spat, Riveria and Hayden bonked both of their heads. Crack. Smack. Oh, what was that for? They both cried out. Shut it. Riveria and Hayden both exclaimed. Finn, with all due respect, I don't think we can properly work together. The only time we did is when we all had a foe we needed to defeat. Riveria would say. I hate to agree with the HAG, but she is right. We couldn't possibly work in a coherent group that will allow us to traverse the dungeon properly. Hayden would add on. Riveria would glance at him from her peripheral and scowled menacingly toward Hayden. Hayden would just shrug it off. Dame raised a hand to calm the rising chaos. Enough, he said firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. I understand there are concerns and differing opinions. But right now, The threat we face is too great to let petty disagreements hinder our efforts. We need a unified front. I agree with the braver. Freya would state. Oh, you do, Fry? Loki questioned. What sort of game are you playing at? I'm not playing any games, Loki. Any other time I would have. But this is serious. The lives of my precious children are at stake. Freya would answer. And besides, it will do us both some good to learn to cooperate together lest we face another opponent like Sukuna and suffer for many more long years. I agree with Lady Freya. Reveria would add, but how exactly do you want us to work together? Hayden would interject. I propose scouts, small groups with some fighting power. So, you're saying have some of our executives scout ahead of the main party? Gareth would ask. That's right. Hayden would respond. That would be a sound strategy under normal circumstances. However, with the monsters now enhanced by at least 2 to 3 levels, and even the floor bosses showing signs of this power surge, we'll need every available hand we can get to stand a chance. Finn would state grimly. Hogni's calm, composed voice resonated with authority as he addressed Finn. Captain Dame, may I inquire, what strategy do you propose we employ to navigate the depths of the dungeon and confront these heightened threats? Your insight will be invaluable for our preparations. Finn's expression was steady as he outlined his plan. I propose to operate in teams of 2, focusing primarily on reconnaissance. Our main objective is to identify the source of the monster's exponential growth and understand what's fueling this surge. The first team should be sizable, around 50 to 60 members, all of which are level 4 or higher, so we can cover more ground efficiently. I believe Hayden should lead this team, supported by the Gulliver brothers, with Tioni and Tiona serving as key executives. Their combined experience and strength will be crucial for gathering vital intelligence and navigating the dangers ahead. Hayden nodded thoughtfully, a calm smile playing on his lips. Understood. Leading such a sizable team will be a challenge, but with proper coordination, we can maximize our reconnaissance efforts. I'll prepare my team accordingly and ensure we gather detailed information on the monster's behaviors and the source of their power surge. Tiona grinned confidently, her eyes shining with determination. Leave it to me. I'll make sure our team finds out everything we need. No monster's gonna hide from me. We'll uncover what's causing this mess and come back with answers, and maybe a few trophies along the way. Tioni's expression remained calm, but her eyes flickered with a hint of impatience. I will coordinate with Hayden and ensure our team operates efficiently. Our focus must be on gathering intelligence without provoking unnecessary conflict. Precision and discipline are essential. Still, I can't help but feel I'd be better suited to be closer to you, Captain, during this operation. Finn's sweat dropped slightly, chuckling to himself while the Amazoness glared at him. The Gulliver brothers exchanged glances, and then one of them spoke with quiet resolve. We're ready to support the plan. We'll handle the scouting and make sure nothing slips past us. Our strength is in our unity. Together, we'll get the information we need and get out safely. The assembly all nodded at that, but there was still a question unanswered. A random member of the assembly would ask what the other team would be doing. Finn's voice was steady and commanding as he outlined the plan. The approach is straightforward. This will serve as our primary strike force. By concentrating the majority of our combined strength on this team, we'll have the manpower necessary to push beyond the 58th floor and reach the 59th. While our immediate goal is to uncover the source of the power surge, we must also keep in mind the broader objective, advancing further into the dungeon. That's why I, along with Reveria, Gareth, Otter, Alan, Bet, Ace, and Hogni, will serve as the core executives leading this expedition. Together, we'll ensure we strike decisively and adapt swiftly to whatever challenges await. The rest of the assembly agreed with this, and they soon disbanded after discussing the plans and the routes they had to take along with the supplies necessary for the expedition. /in. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting impatient, so I'm going to skip the expedition and off-screen it. But if you guys want to read what happens on that expedition, I'll write a separate part for it. Bell's POV. Whoa, Bell exclaimed, his eyes wide with amazement. So this is the Labyrinth City, Oreo. He took a step back, awe evident in his voice. I can't believe how massive the walls are, and that tower. I could see it from miles away. It's incredible. The guard posted to watch the north gate could only chuckle at the boy in front of him. I take it you're new to Oreo, kid. The man would state with a smile. Belle would look at the man who spoke to him and blush slightly as he forgot that he was in a public space, but he replied nonetheless, "Why yes, I'm new to Oreo." Continuing to speak, Belle would say, "I was hoping to become an adventurer." The man would eye the boy in front of him, analyzing him. "Well, good luck, kid. Word of advice, don't get your hopes up too much. The life of an adventurer ain't easy," the man would say to Belle as he led him through. Belle would pass the man, giving him a nod, as he would contemplate what the man had said to him. "Well, I guess I somewhat knew it wouldn't be all sunshine and rainbows." Belle would walk through the city, seeing new things that his small village never had. So many diverse cultures and technology that looked so surreal to him. "Wow, this place is everything I could have hoped for and more," he muttered to himself as he looked in awe at his surroundings. "Well, now that I'm here, I can fulfill my dream of being a hero. But first things first, I have to sign up and become an adventurer," he thought to himself. The pale-haired boy would just walk around for a while, looking around and enjoying the city like a tourist, till he decided to ask people where he could sign up to become an adventurer. The people he asked were kind enough to inform him of where to go, and in a hurry, Belle darted off to the location. In the guild, a beautiful brunette half-elf with glasses was working diligently at the front desk, tending to adventurers while dealing with extra paperwork her coworker decided to dump on her. This half-elf was Pt.2, and she had just finished off her paperwork when a glint of white passed her peripheral. "Huh? What was that?" she thought to herself. Looking up, she saw a white-haired boy with ruby eyes walking into the guild. She observed him for a moment and noticed he looked like a lost puppy. So, Ina would call out to him, "Excuse me." The boy didn't seem to hear her, so she called out once more, "Excuse me, boy with white hair." This seemed to get the boy's attention as he would look at the person calling for him. His eyes would look toward the sound of the voice that called to him. He looked up to see a gorgeous half-elf. Belle would grow bright red and begin to stutter. Why you mean me?" He pointed at himself dumbly. Ina would chuckle at the boy's antics and reply, "Yes, you. Who else but you has white hair?" She'd tease. Belle's cheeks flushed even deeper as he scratched the back of his head, trying to compose himself. Why yeah, that's me. Sorry, I'm new here. I was told I needed to sign up to become an adventurer." Ina's gentle smile softened as she observed the overwhelmed boy. "No worries. It can be a lot to take in your first time here. I'm Ina, by the way. I run the front desk at the guild, and I'm also an advisor to rookie adventurers." She extended a hand, her tone warm but professional. "If you're looking to register, I can help you with the process. Do you already belong to a familia?" Belle hesitated, lowering his gaze. "No, I don't have one yet. I just arrived today. I don't know how all of that works." Ina's expression softened further, her eyes kind. "That's okay. Many adventurers start without a familia. It's not unusual. If you'd like, I can help you find a familia that suits your goals, or even introduce you to some of the guild's members who are looking for recruits." Belle's eyes brightened a little at that. "Really? That would be great. I want to become an adventurer, to help people, and become a hero someday. I just don't know where to start." Ina nodded understandingly. "That's a noble goal. Everyone starts somewhere, and the guild is here to support you. You'll find that there are many different familia with different ideals and focuses. Some are more combat-oriented, others more supportive, exploratory, and some are more into medicine." Belle's expression grew determined. "Thank you. I want to do this right. I want to help people and make a difference." Ina's eyes twinkled with encouragement. "That's the spirit. For now, here is the list of some familias you could join, along with a map so you don't get lost. Make sure to check with the guild once you have officially joined a familia so I can register you as an adventurer." Belle smiled at Ina cheerfully and said, "Thank you so much. I promise I'll make you proud." Ina chuckled softly, adjusting her glasses. "I believe in you. Just remember, stay safe." Belle nodded vigorously, determination burning in his eyes. "This is it. My adventure begins now." Turning around to face the front door, Belle would begin to walk off the guild filled with joy, but before he could fully leave the guild, he'd stop to turn slightly. Looking back at Ina, who seemed a little confused by his sudden stop, Belle didn't pay any attention to that as he suddenly blurted out, "I love you, Ina." After that, Belle would fully exit the guild, not turning back to see the mess he had just made. What? Ina would think to herself, as a massive blush would creep up her face. "Oh, I think someone has a little boyfriend," Misha would say, teasing her already flushed friend. And no, that is not it. Ina would reply, still in shock. So her tone didn't sound very convincing to the rest of her coworkers who were paying attention to the scene along with the other adventurers in the guild. Meanwhile, Bell would have started his search. He decided to leave the bigger name familiars for last and search for the smaller one first. Using the map Ina had provided for him, his search for a familia began. -4 hours later, Bell would be greatly disappointed with his results, as he finds himself struggling to find one familia that would give him a chance. Most of them kicked him out without even batting an eye. Others would say he looked too frail and should find another profession. But what all of them said in common was he looked like a weak little rabbit and should scurry along to his mommy. All of this would bring Bell's excitement down, as he eats a snack he had bought from a food stall nearby. Well, I shouldn't expect success too early on, Bell would say to himself. Munch asterisk. I shouldn't give up yet. Heroes always face trials and tribulations and overcome them no matter how difficult they may be. I should do the same, Bell would say, reviving his resolve. -3 days later. Bell would wipe some snot from his nose as he sniffles. I'm no hero. Watching him from the corner was a small petite goddess with twin tails swishing about. She had been observing Bell for the past 3 days as she had witnessed him getting rejected after trying to join a familia. Oh man, that boy has it rough, she think to herself. But every day since then she would always somehow see that boy everywhere she went until she decided to follow and quietly observe him. Which brings us to our current predicament. Smack. The petite goddess would gasp into her hand as she had just witnessed the same boy who caught her interest get punched square in the face by an older man saying get lost, or something like that, cause from her current position, she couldn't properly make out what the man was saying. The goddess seeing the boy not get up, but instead curl up into a ball and cry, made her heart ache, but she didn't know why. She didn't even know the boy personally, yet her heart yearned and ached at the sight of the boy being mistreated. Why does my heart hurt and yearn to help that boy? She think to herself. She would watch and observe him for a moment longer before leaving her hiding spot and approaching the boy. As she did so, the clouds that had once blocked out the rays of the sun had finally lifted. In that same instance, Bell would look up toward the sound of footsteps to see a little girl. No, a goddess. As the short goddess approached the boy, she stopped right in front of him, as the little from the sun shone down on her, making her look ethereal to the eyes of the boy. I'm the goddess Hestia, goddess of the hearth and home, also of purity, Hestia would announce. Bell's eyes widened in surprise as he looked up at the small, radiant goddess standing before him. His nose still dripped slightly, and his cheeks were flushed from crying, but he managed to muster a trembling, grateful voice. Why you're a goddess? His voice cracked, but his eyes shimmered with a mixture of confusion, awe, and a faint flicker of hope. I've heard of gods and goddesses, but I never thought I'd meet one. Oh, I'm Bell Cranel, by the way. Hestia's gentle smile deepened as she knelt slightly to be closer to his eye level. Her voice was soft but warm, like a comforting flame. Bell, I saw what happened, and I can see the pain in your eyes. I want to help. Would you consider joining my familia? I would be honored to have you. Together, we can find a place for you to call home. I am the goddess of hearth and home after all. Bell's eyes widened even further at her words. His trembling hands clenched into fists as he looked at her, overwhelmed by her kindness. Tears welled up again, but this time, they were tears of hope, relief, and gratitude. Oh, really? You want me to join you? His voice quivered with emotion, but a faint smile started to form through his tears. I'd love that. I don't have anywhere else to go, and I want to become stronger. I want to help people, and maybe, just maybe, I can be a hero. He paused, voice barely above a whisper, filled with genuine gratitude. Thank you so much. I'll do my best. No, I'll try my hardest for you. And with that, the Hestia family was born. -2 weeks later. 2 weeks had passed since then, and Bell would have registered himself fully as an adventurer at the guild, and as soon as the paperwork was done, Bell darted off to the entrance of the dungeon to start his adventure. His first day would go about not so smoothly, but somewhat passable. Bell would face a goblin on the first floor, and he was terrified. But when he managed to land a lucky fatal blow to the goblin, making burst into ash, leaving behind a magic crystal, he would dart off, out of the dungeon like a madman, making his way to Hestia, which when she found out, started to laugh uncontrollably. Seeing this, Belle would turn a shade of crimson and pout, deciding to rush back into the dungeon. Now though, with his trusty dagger and cheap leather armor, Belle was trekking through the 5th floor. Belle had now gained some more experience fighting and was as scared as his first dive. Belle would slash at a kobold that came at him, injuring the right side of the beast. Seeing an opening, Belle wouldn't hesitate and plunge his dagger into the gut of the kobold, twist the dagger to make extra sure it wasn't going to strike back. He was right. The monster didn't and poofed into smoke, leaving behind a magic crystal. "I've gotten better at this," Belle would say, picking up the magic stone and placing it into a small pouch attached to his hip. "Though I could have moved better, but maybe that just comes with experience," he muttered to himself. Simultaneously, on the 15th floor of the dungeon, the expedition group of Freya and Loki were now emerging. They were all battered and bruised, but thanks to the strength of their combined forces, they managed to prevail and reach the 59th floor, whilst also finding the cause of the monster's power surge, which set off alarm bells in all of them. Currently, the group was just finishing off the minotaurs that had just spawned. Rather easily, the group dispatched most of them in a jiffy, until a black minotaur surrounded by a malevolent purple aura had been birthed. All of them now were on high alert, seeing that this wasn't a normal minotaur. This minotaur's purple aura was concentrated in the middle of it, around its core, probably where the cursed finger was located. Otter and Finn got ready to attack, but the minotaur wisely escaped. It used a poison gas that stopped them from moving through. Even with the development ability of abnormal resistance, they weren't able to pass until the poison gas dissipated. Ace Wallenstein, the Sword Princess, would not let this creature make it up to the upper floors, so she used her wind magic, Tempest, to surround herself in wind to push past the poison gas. With Belle, he had now killed a few more monsters, and his magic stone pouch was getting heavier. So, he decided to call it a day and head back to the surface. "Well, that should be all for today. Maybe with this amount, I can buy my goddess a nice dinner," Belle would say to himself. Suddenly, the whole 5th floor went silent. Belle noticed this and started getting a little worried, but didn't act on said suspicion. Then, a roar echoed through the halls, making Belle shiver slightly. He grasped the hilt of his dagger and readied himself for what was to come. Unbeknownst to him, the foe was not what he was expecting. Glowing red eyes glared at him from the shadows and heavy breathing could be heard. Then, the beast revealed itself to Belle, and what he saw petrified him. A black minotaur, with a white mane that contrasted skin, would appear. The minotaur also radiated a malevolent power, and it seemed to Belle that at the minotaur's very core was the source of that very dark power. Belle stared at the minotaur for a good second before screaming like a little girl and running for his dear life. The minotaur seemed amused by this and grinned evilly and chased the boy, roaring in the process. Belle had run for a good 5 minutes, and his body was killing him. The fact that he hadn't eaten lunch and was completely thirsty, topped with the fact he was extremely fatigued, made him feel like keeling over and dying. But he knew he had to make out alive for his goddess. "Whyy on earth is there a minotaur here?" Belle would shout out in fear and disbelief at his current misfortune. "Why of all times does an enhanced-looking minotaur have to find me? Why not someone else?" Belle would scream out mentally. While mentally berating his horrible, like he narrowly dodged a fatal blow from the beast, as a fist would make contact with the wall. Yikes! If I'm not careful, I could be turned into a human pancake, Belle thought. Though his thoughts were of being careful, he wasn't being careful by watching his surroundings, and he made a very grave error, walking into a dead end. "Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap!" Belle said in a panic, turning around to attempt to leave. But in his path stood a very smug-looking minotaur. It had a devilish smirk on its face, almost like it was saying, "Gotcha, bitch." Belle would look at the minotaur with a scowl, but it quickly faded as the minotaur walked closer and closer. "This bastard. If only I were strong enough," Belle would think to himself. The minotaur inched closer and threw a fatal right cross at Belle that would surely kill him on impact. Belle, seeing this, would put his arms to block the punch. Though, he knew the moment the strike would land, it would be all over for him. Unexpectedly, as Belle took the hit, instead of the force of the punch bearing down on him with the wall pressing back to crush, the wall broke as if it wasn't a wall but a hidden entrance. Belle was sent through the wall, pain shooting through both his arms. As Belle was sent hurling through the air, he began to tumble onto the ground. making him go further into the hidden area. Bel's vision would still be blurred and his head spinning, but it took him about a minute or two to somehow find his bearings. Ah! Bel would let out a scream, as his arms would dangle to the side of his torso, going purple. My arms are broken, and my legs can barely move. Is this where I die? He'd ask himself. Roar. A sudden roar would make him shoot up from his laying position, in turn, causing bolts of pain to rack his body. This stupid monster is still after me, just great. Bel would think to himself as he would barely stand to his feet. Looking around to inspect what he would assume was the last thing he would see, Bel would mentally prepare himself for his impending doom, until his eye laid upon a mysterious-looking box. At first, he would be hesitant to open it, remembering Ina's warning of traps in the dungeon. But he then thought of his current situation. To hell with it. If I'm going to die anyway, why not end it off with a little happiness? The thought of his current situation already looking grim pushes Bel to try and open the box. At first, he couldn't do it because his arms were useless at the moment, so he decided to kick the box off its little pedestal to try and force it open with the help of gravity. He was successful in his endeavor and decided to see what was inside. To his disappointment and disgust, he only found a rotten-looking finger that seemed to emanate a dark aura similar to the Minotaur, but Bel pushed that aside to the back of his mind. You've got to be kidding me, he'd say in disbelief. All I get is a damn finger. Roar. The Minotaur drew closer than ever, probably 30 meters away from Bel. Bel would calm himself, though only seemed to work for a second before fear sunk its claws once more. If I'm going to die, I might as well do it myself, Bel would say, remembering that stupid smirk the Minotaur had on its face. But I can't reach my dagger. Then an idea popped into his head. If I can't use a dagger, then maybe poison. Bel would look at the finger on the ground and smirked. That stupid beast will never have the satisfaction of knowing it killed me, he'd say, amused at his idea. Thud, thud, thud. The Minotaur's booming footsteps entered the room. Its domineering presence flooded Bel with a sense of fear, but that fear quickly morphed into spite and anger. Bel would make haste and dove at the finger, using his mouth to pick it up. As Bel had the cursed finger in his mouth, he desperately rose to his feet to meet the confused yet amused face of the Minotaur. I gotheth, Bel would say in a muffled tone. The Minotaur would eye Bel, confused at the action of its prey. Disregarding it, the Minotaur went on the offensive, darting forward in hopes of killing its prey. Bel would watch as the Minotaur got closer and closer. Well, it's now or never, he'd think to himself, as Bel would swallow the finger. Gulp asterisk. An audible gulp could be heard echoing in the room, as the Minotaur rammed its horns straight into Bel's chest, sending him flying and crashing into the wall behind him. Crash. Bel's body would collide hard with the wall as a dust cloud would loom over. The Minotaur would roar in victory, as it would celebrate its kill. Unbeknownst to the Minotaur, Bel wouldn't be dead. The finger Bel had swallowed would react to him, and it would awaken a slumbering curse, a curse that plagued Orio for years. The king of curses, Sukuna, has returned. Ha ha ha. A maniacal laugh could be heard from the dust cloud where Bel should have been. The Minotaur faced the direction of the sound, puzzled. Why was there laughing, and why did the room suddenly feel heavy? Were the thoughts of the Minotaur if it could think? I have returned. Where are all the women and children? I want to hear them scream. The dust cloud would settle, and what was left had the Minotaur stunned. The boy he had assumed was dead was now back on his feet. Injuries prior were now healing, and all of a sudden markings covered the boy, primarily his face. Sukuna would look around, surveying his surroundings as his eye would lay upon the Minotaur. Oh, so a challenger has appeared already? He'd say in a fake questioning tone. Well, you'll do for a perfect warm-up. Make sure not to disappoint. As soon as those words left Sukuna's mouth, he disappeared instantly. The Minotaur had no time to react, as its left arm was blown off. Dismantle, Sukuna would say, grinning evilly. The arm he had cut off was sent flying, spurting out blood like a sprinkler. Come on, is this the best you can do? He jabbed mockingly. Roar, asterisk. Blood poured out of the Minotaur, gushing out violently. Unrelenting, the beast swung wildly, sweeping its remaining arm towards Sukuna. Sukuna smirked smugly, dodging the strike and disappearing in a flash. He would reappear just as fast and lash out, using his martial arts to land devastating attacks on the Minotaur. The Minotaur would be sent back and fall to one knee, panting heavily. Suddenly, the Minotaur would start to pulsate cursed energy, a purple glow engulfing it. The Minotaur's damage began to heal slowly. The blood flowing like a river from his missing arm ceased, and said arm regenerated back like the tail of a lizard. Sukuna would raise an eyebrow at that, looking at the Minotaur quizzically. That was the reverse curse technique. He thought, a little shocked that this muscle head was able to utilize one of his many techniques. Then it hit him. Realization hit Sukuna. The faint glow that the beast was emanating from the start was cursed energy, is cursed energy. Though he didn't understand how this was possible, now that he looked at the situation, he didn't know how he was even alive. Well, isn't that strange? He asked, speaking to no one in general. This Minotaur can use my technique. Now this makes things a whole lot more interesting. Sukuna would say, feeling a sense of excitement and thrill at the prospect of a challenge. Meanwhile, Ace Wallenstein had been scouring the dungeon for any leads on the super-enhanced Minotaur. As the poison gases the monster had released were potent enough to halt the advance of the level 8 otter and level 7 fin, which should have been impossible due to the development skill abnormal resistance. This caused the Minotaur to make a hasty exit and retreat to the upper floors for safety. This is bad on many levels. First of all, a Minotaur on the upper levels is a total massacre for any newbie adventurers because Minotaurs are around level 2 and are middle floor monsters. Secondly, this isn't any normal Minotaur. An enhanced one would be bad enough, but seeing as this is a rather special case, being a super enhanced species because of the cursed finger makes the Minotaur at least a level 4 monster. Ace would look like a golden bolt of lightning to anyone who saw her, as she would be moving at imperceptible speeds that the naked eye couldn't keep up with. As she darts around the dungeon floor, she finds a dead-end section, and in that section, it had a massive hole that could be seen in the wall which looked to have held a secret passageway behind it. Ace would approach the newly made entrance and walk through, deciding to investigate it to see if the Minotaur had made its way in there. The air inside the hidden passage was thick with dust and an eerie silence, broken only by the faint dripping of water echoing from somewhere deep within. Ace Wallenstein's sharp senses picked up on faint traces of malevolent force lingering in the air, faint, but unmistakably present. She moved swiftly and silently, readying her wind magic to dispose of any threat. As Ace discreetly made her way through the passageway, she noticed ancient writings that almost seemed like the hieroglyphs on a fauna, but slightly different. She studied them for a mere moment, interested in the strange design and purpose of it, but she was interrupted when the sound of flesh getting beaten was heard. Was it the Minotaur? Was I too late? Was all that consumed and ate away at Ace as she quickly darted off to where she could see a faint light that illuminated the dark corridor. Exiting the passageway, Ace was greeted by the sight of a white-haired boy engaged in a duel with the Minotaur. Ace was shocked, noticing that the young boy looked to be dominating the fight, landing precise and powerful attacks that made the behemoth of a monster stagger back. How is he able to land such devastating attacks? How is that small frame of his able to produce such power? Ace stood there, in awe at the display before her, but unbeknownst to her the boy that she was watching had noticed her. Ah, an audience. I mustn't disappoint. Sukuna would think to himself, as he dodges another wild and powerful swing from the Minotaur, jumping backward into a somersault. Moments earlier. This Minotaur can use my technique. Now this makes things a whole lot more interesting. Sukuna would say, feeling a sense of excitement and thrill at the prospect of a challenge. He would then engage in a brutal fist against the Minotaur. Both of them go blow for blow, each hit becoming faster and stronger than the last. Sukuna would dodge an attempted grab by ducking under the Minotaur's massive hands and delivering a bone-crushing body blow that broke some ribs of the Minotaur, in turn shattering his hand. TCH. Sukuna clicked his tongue in annoyance. This thing's hide is as hard as adamantite. He'd grumble. Jumping back to create some distance, Sukuna would use the reverse curse technique to mend his broken hand. On the other hand, no pun intended, the Minotaur did the same thing. It healed its broken ribs and got ready for another confrontation. Sukuna, on the other hand, was watching and observing the beast's every move, analyzing it, to see where its weak spots were and the source of that unnatural cursed energy it was now in possession of. Whilst observing the beast, he witnesses that same pulse coming from its core. Well, well, well. It seems you have something that belongs to me. Now I'm going to kindly take it back and kill you, he proclaimed, charging forward and initiating another exchange of blows. This time, the attacks from both sides were fiercer and more aggressive. Each attack aimed to kill or to cripple. HHHH/ROAR. A vicious battle cry from both participants echoed throughout the chamber, and an exchange of heavy punches ensued. Sukuna would throw a right cross to counter the Minotaur's left. Both attacks landed and the sound of breaking bones could be heard, but that didn't halt their forward charge. More and more attacks came, and Sukuna was starting to dominate, though he did realize that his current body wasn't up to par with his old one. This body was a lot shorter, slower, and weaker by comparison. This served as somewhat of an equalizer for the Minotaur, as even it knows it holds a power and size advantage. But that didn't stop Sukuna. Though his strikes were weaker in comparison to the Minotaur, he was by far the more efficient and skilled fighter. Sukuna dodged a flurry of senseless punches from the Minotaur and countered back with a kick to the liver, causing the Minotaur to dip its head slightly. Capitalizing on this chance, Sukuna kicked it again, landing it on the chin of the Minotaur, disorienting it. As the massive beast stumbles back and tries to regain its bearings, Sukuna lunges forward and lands a combination of body and headshots before jumping back, dodging an incoming attack from the Minotaur. This is when he noticed he had a spectator and decided to end this farce. Present. Sukuna had enough and decided to end things right here and now. And looks like he wasn't the only one, as the Minotaur began to radiate a purple glow. Sukuna got into a stance, bringing back his right arm and leaving his left as a sort of guide and guard for his next attack. The Minotaur glow soon was only getting projected into its horns. "Let us end this here and now," Sukuna declared, filled with ecstasy and glee. The Minotaur roared in response, got onto all fours, and began to dart forwards. Its speed wasn't remarkable until it was in full stride. It looked to be a purple blur once it was at full speed, horns aimed to skewer the boy in front of it. Sukuna charged up his cursed energy into his right hand. It was engulfed in that menacing aura until it began to pulsate violently. Sukuna smiled deviously as he too charged at full speed to confront the Minotaur. "Now DE," Sukuna would yell out. "Roar, asterisk." Both combatants charged and inched closer and closer to each other until they were a hair length away. Both attacks were ready to finish each other off, but at the very last second Sukuna managed to narrowly dodge the glowing horn, getting grazed on the cheek. Sukuna would change the trajectory of his attack by an inch, going for the core instead of clashing with its horns. Black flash. Suddenly the bluish aura that was pulsating around Sukuna's fist now shifted into a violent blood-red color, as the fist collided with the chest of the Minotaur, causing it to get knocked off its feet. Flashes of red lightning illuminated the secret room of the 5th floor, as the Minotaur was sent flying into the wall with a boom. The wall that the Minotaur crashed into shattered on impact, causing larger cracks to spread around the wall. It even shook the ceiling above. Ace, who was watching the whole thing, was gobsmacked. She was in awe at the total power and strength this adventurer had just displayed. A massive dust cloud covered the area for a few moments, but it soon blew over, and what was shown was the black Minotaur, the horn broken off, and it lay sprawled out, coughing out blood violently as the core of the Minotaur was exposed. The magic stone is exposed, along with the cursed finger that piqued Sukuna's interest. So, this is the source of its power. Is this the thing that allowed me to reincarnate into this boy's body? He pondered. Before anything else, he took both a magic stone and a cursed finger from the Minotaur. It released one last cry of anguish before bursting into a plume of ash that faded away. You there?" The voice of his spectator called out to him. Sukuna turned to face the woman he saw earlier, but before he could do such a thing, half of his body stopped moving and wouldn't respond. "What the hell is happening?" he questioned, shocked and frustrated at the turn of events. Ace just looked on with worry, seeing the boy still and shaking slightly. Could it be overexertion? He did fight hard against that super-enhanced Minotaur. She thought to herself. Ace would contemplate what to do until she decided to just confront the boy. Sukuna was still struggling to move, as he tried to will his body to move. "I won't let you," a voice called out with determination. It was Cranel, the original host to this body, that Sukuna now used as a vessel. What? Sukuna would say in shock. How are you resisting me? He'd add in a confused and frustrated tone as he and Bell continued a tug-of-war for the controls to Bell's body. Get out. Bell would yell as he would kick Sukuna out and send him to his subconscious. Ace would be a little shocked at his outburst, a little confused and worried for the boy. I'm sorry, she would say, speaking up for once. The tattoo-like markings would disappear from Bell's body as he would turn to face the blonde beauty before him. Looking at her, Bell would turn a beet red, blushing wildly. And no. Bell would stutter out. He was a complete mess. The sight of this angel caught him off guard. Regaining some semblance of composure, Bell finally spoke up. Sorry about my outburst. I was just trying to calm a voice in my head. Ace looked at him and tilted her head cutely, signifying her confusion. Bell's heart had skipped a beat, but he was also very embarrassed. Why? Stupid. 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 He'd think to himself. Why on earth would I say a voice in my head out of all things? Now she might think I'm crazy. But before anything else could transpire, Bell would make a hasty exit, unbeknownst to him, taking the cursed finger and magic stone with him. Ace just stood there dumbfounded. What a strange boy you are.